Hey everyone, this is Jennifer Beamer, owner-operator of Actually Dyed Art by Science. This is the daily vlog, episode number 33, and today I'm going to just hit on the fact that yes, it is super useful to swatch for your project. Now, I got this magazine when I was in the States over the summer, and there are a lot of really great patterns in here that I'm desperate to start on, but you know, sometimes even when you have handspun, usually my method to approaching this stuff is either make art yarn or make yarn for a project. So when I make art yarn, I just kind of make it based on however I'm inspired. But when it comes to, you know, needing yard, you know, a certain yardage or needing yarn for a specific project that has a pretty standard gauge, you know, it's important to swatch. So usually in this position, I spin up all the yarn because I have this idea of lace weight or this idea of sport weight. But, you know, sometimes what's given on a pattern might not actually be what you consider 14 wraps per inch. And part of this is because it's not necessarily the easiest thing to determine wraps per inch. So if you're going to make handspun yarn for your project that does have a necessary gauge to obtain, like for example socks, what I suggest is swatch your handspun before you spin it all up at a certain gauge and then realize in the end that, well, I have 500 yards of this yarn and I need to pick a different pattern because I'm, you know, it's either too large or too small. And one of those, if the gauge is a little bit, if the gauge is higher, it's harder to go down a needle size because again, the fabric gets really dense and you might not be able to see the intricacies of a pattern. It's a little bit easier to go up a needle size, but then, you know, you can't go up 2 or 3 or 4 because then it gets too loose. So the important point here is to swatch even your handspun. So in this particular pattern, this is the dragon's egg pattern. I need more socks, basically. So there's, I think, 3 or 4 sock patterns in this particular magazine. So I want to make each pair. And this is the first pair that I want to make. And I think it came down to 14 wraps per inch was the yarn suggested for this project because that's what they used for this specific picture. However, there's no real standard. I mean, there might be a company standard, and a lot of people understand when you say like 14 wraps per inch, they get an idea of what gauge you're talking about. But sometimes in the end, it may not be exact. So this is what I mean. I spun up this yarn, which is actually this here. I dyed this a while ago, but it's got these browns and golds in it. A piece of my own hair. Like that's never happened before. So I spun this up into what I thought was going to be 14 wraps per inch. And I got a yarn that was 14 wraps per inch. However, when I knitted my swatch, I got, instead of, I think it was supposed to be 8 stitches per inch, or it was supposed to be 8.5 stitches per inch, and I got 8 stitches per inch. Now, it doesn't make a big difference, but when you're knitting something like socks and you want them to stay up, that half a stitch off can actually make a difference. So if it's a half a stitch off per inch and it's 8 inches around, you know, you're already off by quite a bit. So basically, even though I spun this at 14 wraps per inch, it didn't come out to the same gauge listed in the pattern. So this this yarn, if I were to make all of this up, which probably would have been about 500 yards in a 2-ply, I would have been horribly disappointed at the fact that this yarn wouldn't work for this project. So what I can do is I can go back and make this, say, 16 wraps per inch, and then like while I'm spinning it, I can make the singles 32 wraps per inch instead of 28 wraps per inch. So that when it was plied, it would be 16 wraps per inch instead of 14 wraps per inch. So I could do that, or I could find a different pattern to use. And I did find that this pattern, Dumbledore's Warm Socks, oops, that is, it's also at 14 wraps per inch, but ironically, this gauge is 7 stitches per inch when you do stockinette. So what I could do is, instead of using the needles that I use for this swatch, I could go up a size in my needles and be able to make this particular pattern, because it's not going to make too much of a difference in terms of like how loose it is if I go up just one needle size. So that wouldn't be terrible. So I have a choice. I can either spin it at a slightly thinner gauge than I did the first time, or I could spin it at this gauge and just do a different pattern. But this is why I feel I need to express that even if you are making hand spun, it's still important to swatch before you've spun up the entire amount and then realized that you have to pick a different pattern. So anyway, that's my little tip for today. And if you have any other questions or suggestions for future videos, vlog videos or otherwise, I'm happy to do all sorts of videos. I do lots of things, so it doesn't hurt to ask. You can also find me on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm starting a new blog, so you'll be able to find me there. I'm going to have different kinds of projects posted as well. And if you like this video enough, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.